want is what you want, right?
What, you don't believe me?
You're the all-star, right? You're the Superman.
We have to go now! Now!
Do anything.
Hey, Grandpa. What are you reading?
Oh, it's a poem by a guy named William Blake. It's called Little Boy Lost.
Ryan! Ryan! Where are you?
It's about a young boy who follows his dad into the forest and then falls behind.
This isn't funny.
But it's not really about a little boy. It's really about lost innocence, about a child lured into the material world with the promise of perfection.
Ryan! Come on!
Funny thing is, Brian Williams could have told you that too.
Who is Brian Williams?
He's a basketball star who used to read Blake. Like the poet, he knew a thing or two about loneliness and vanishing fathers. Listen to this. The night was dark, no father was there. The child was wet with dew.
The center has notified his team he's leaning toward retirement at age 30.
The mire was deep, and the child did weep, and away the vapor flew. Caught in the whirlwind of NBA stardom, blinded by its glare, Williams chose to flee. Now that may or may not explain why he and his girlfriend, his brother, and his ship's captain were sailing the South Pacific on that fateful July of 2002. But it certainly doesn't explain what happened there. Nor does it reveal the terrible secret of that journey, why only one of the four was ever seen again.
Are you with me?
There was a tension.
Driven by hate, jealousy.
You're thinking that no one is ever going to believe you. What do?
I want to know the truth. I've been through a lot of hell, too.
In a world of uncertainty, sports is a small island of clarity, a rock of absolutes. One winner, one loser. That is what we love about the games. Over the years, I've covered my share of resounding triumphs and stinging defeats. But today, I'm drawn beyond the teeming arenas and the adoring crowds to those darker mysteries that camp like ghosts, beyond the comforting message of the scoreboard. I'm Bill Mack, and this is the arena of Unsettled Scores.
Play like a Porsche or a VW.
People say that, well, he doesn't love the game. Basketball is not in my blood like a lot of the guys you talk to.
He was Brian Williams for most of his career. Towards the end, he changed his name to Bison Dealey, a tribute to his Native American roots. Most of his friends continue to call him Brian. And I think I'll stick with that, too. Brian's NBA career peaked in '97 when he helped Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls win their 5th straight championship.
He was huge for us. I think he fit right in. I don't think that was the case on some of the other teams.
The Chicago spotlight made him rich, gilding him with a $40 million contract to play for the Detroit Pistons. Billed as a missing key to a title, Williams seemed to melt around the wick of his own unwanted stardom.
I knew that when Detroit signed him, they were getting a player who was worth that kind of money physically, but not emotionally.
Eventually, he said he felt like a performing monkey running up and down the court.
How could a man who'd attained so much bear such contempt for the game that had made him? Was he just cynical, as some perceived? Or was he really the ultimate romantic, willing to risk all for love and adventure?
The Orlando Magic selects Brian Williams from the University of Arizona.
Initially, everyone's happy that you made it to the NBA. Along with that, family members start to assume that you should take care of them.
I didn't see any gratefulness at all from his family. Brian went out and bought his father, bought him a $20,000 motorcycle. And his father said, "Son, next time just give me the cash."
Williams turned himself into a manic bon vivant and world traveler, riding camels in Egypt, running with the bulls in Spain. After the '99 season, he flitted off to Beirut, Lebanon, never to return to the NBA. At the age of 30, he announced his retirement.
You see a guy that can't stand being in cities anymore. Bungee jumping, skydiving. He was a seeker of thrill. But then again, the more he learned about himself, the more he realized the loneliness he's made of.
He became a 6'11" nomad with a fortune in the bank. He headed to the Far East, to Indonesia, then the Philippines, and finally Australia. There he learned to sail. He bought a boat and christened her Hakuna Matata. That's Swahili for no worries. But half a world away, there was reason to worry. It came on a crisp blue morning. He was still down under when the terrorists attacked New York. Clearly concerned, he called an old Manhattan flame of his, Serena Carlin, and invited her to paradise for 2 weeks. She stayed for 8, after which she reluctantly flew home.
She was back in New York, and he called her up, and he said, I think we have something here.
He invited Serena to join him on a year-long cruise. She hesitated, and not even a $50,000 check from Brian, money to help settle her affairs, convinced her. At least, not at first.
She was saying, what do you think? I said, what you wouldn't want to do is wake up at age 40 and wonder what that would have been. It's one of those moments where you wish you'd said something different.
Serena rejoined Brian in June of 2002. But as they fitted the Hakuna Matata with supplies for a 2,500-mile sail from Tahiti to Hawaii, Brian's older brother, Kevin, who had also changed his name to Miles DeBoard, showed up unannounced with, of all things, his weightlifting barbells. On July 7, with Petron Saldo at the helm, the party of 4 pushed out of the harbor. They never made it to Hawaii. Just 9 days later, the Hakuna Matata was back in Tahiti. It had been repainted and its name changed to Bella Aria. One thing hadn't changed. It was still registered to Brian Williams.
I said, what's so complicated about it? Where are they?
Pacific means tranquil in Spanish. Any lover of Blake's poetry might flee the organ grinder music of the NBA for the sultry winds that strum through Tahitian palms. But treachery whispered its presence in the air as Brian, Serena, Miles, and Captain Saldo sailed north towards Hawaii.
Bison would call me up completely out of his mind. And he said, Serena's beautiful. She's always beautiful. Miles, next question.
What's the matter with you?
I'm real tight, man. And I remember when I used to work out all the time and leg press 600 pounds, I was never tight.
You ain't never lift 600 pounds in your life.
But you don't believe me?
All right. I forgot, you're Superman, right?
Miles is down there making a stab at reacquainting himself with his brother.
Big man. Big boat, big contract.
But yet being totally dependent on his baby brother.
Miles wasn't the Midas man. Everything he touched went to
But wait, can we back up a moment? What do we know about Brian and Miles growing up? Well, we know that their parents were divorced when they were young and that they grew up in Fresno with their mother and an imposing stepfather, of whom both boys lived in fear. And that Brian came of age not only looking up to his older brother, but looking to him for nurture and protection. Their old relationship did a 180 when Brian, not Miles, became a basketball star at the University of Arizona. So, in a twist of cruel irony, Miles became dependent on his little brother, reduced to seeking ever bigger handouts as one failure led to another.
If Bison gave Miles $3,000 here or $10,000 there, it would pacify the time a bit until the next time he'll ask for money.
But what about Brian? His history shows he had some demons too.
Look at me!
We've all had the blues.
Stop being a little sissy, boy!
But when you don't care anymore, you don't care about your family, you don't care about your job, you don't care about anything.
In the early 90s, when he was starring for the Orlando Magic, Brian overdosed on sleeping pills. His explanation for why he tried to kill himself was murky at best, but one thing was clear. He scared the hell out of the Magic organization, so much so that they put him on the DL and into therapy with medication. But the treatment Brian received 10 years earlier seemed of no consequence as he sailed through the blue vastness. Those who saw Brian and Serena together spoke of a passionate couple, clearly in love. And yet there were times when the music tilted off-key.
She told me that there's an aggressive streak in him that was both attracting her and making her nervous.
Even with me at times, he would get really mad or he would go off the deep end. You just kind of shake your head like, you know, what the heck was that all about?
Could one of these sudden outbursts have triggered a tragic chain of events aboard the Hakuna Matata?
What'd you come out here for then?
I came out here because I thought maybe you and I could reconnect. Like we used to be as brothers, man. But obviously you're not interested in that, are you? So I'm thinking maybe I'm just gonna, go back to shore.
If that's what you want to do. If you want to leave, then leave.
If that's what I want. No, that's what you want, right?
When they didn't arrive in Hawaii, the questions began.
The former NBA player remains missing.
Hasn't been heard from in more than 2 months after setting sail to Honolulu from Tahiti.
I was feeling concerned. Serena would have reached across the world to call me on my birthday, and she didn't.
They heard nothing. And then a clue to disturb the uneasy calm. A $152,000 check, purportedly bearing Brian's signature for the purchase of gold coins, cleared a Phoenix bank.
That's when I realized that something was wrong. A handwritten check for $150,000. He hadn't written a check out that large his entire career.
It had been 2 months, And still no one had heard from anyone aboard the Hakuna Matata. Then came that startling discovery of the canceled check, the payment for those gold coins. The signature read Brian Williams. But to those who knew Brian, it defied all logic.
There were 2 telephone numbers written on the check, and I called those numbers. One of the numbers was an answering machine saying, "Hey, this is B, leave a message." But it wasn't Brian's voice, it was Miles's voice. And my heart just kind of dropped.
Porter left a message. An hour later, the phone rang. It was Miles.
I said, "Do you know where anyone is?" He says, "Well, it's real complicated. I'll tell you later," and he hangs up.
The news that Miles was alive and in Phoenix was met with shock and relief. Police picked him up at the gold dealers after setting a trap for him.
Serena hasn't called home in 2 months.
And guess what? Miles had yet another check on him with his brother's name on it.
Do you have something to do with your brother's disappearance?
Of course not. Look, I've done everything I possibly can to help my brother.
He also had his passport and credit cards.
B just gave it to me just to use as identification. I never traveled on that passport.
And he's what, in a strange country with no passport? How's he surviving?
He doesn't plan on leaving.
When I get down there, he's not saying anything, and he wants me to get him an attorney. Get you an attorney. Answer the questions first.
The police, lacking evidence of foul play, released Miles. Later that evening, he told Kevin Porter he needed $500,000 to pay ransom for Serena and Brian, who had been kidnapped.
He says, "I'll tell you everything you want to know. You come to Mexico with me." "Why do I need to go to Mexico with you?" He says, "Because KP, California and Arizona carry the death penalty."
The death penalty? What exactly had Miles done? Enter Patrick Byrne, the one man close enough to Brian who could raise that kind of money.
We agreed to meet in Tijuana, and I said I could get $500,000 in cash into a suitcase and I could come meet him.
Byrne was bluffing. Miles was now in Tijuana, but nobody was quite sure where. Perhaps the money would flush him out.
His mother told him, "Patrick is coming down to meet you, but Patrick's working with the authorities." And I said, why did you tell him that? In my view, she always took Miles aside.
Waiting FBI agents were disappointed when Byrne ended up stranded on a Tijuana street corner, left literally holding the bag. Though he'd eluded capture, Miles grew paranoid, isolated, and anxious. He needed to unburden himself of his story.
He gave a bunch of backstory to it, and I was kind of half-assed listening to.
Miles, stop!
But when he explained how Serena died, I stopped and said, wait. Are you telling me that someone is dead?
The FBI has issued an arrest warrant for DeLay's brother.
Mom, I know the police are looking for me. I can't go to prison. I can't survive in prison.
Mayday! Mayday!
When she was 4 years old, she said, "I'll never leave you, Mom."
If you're out there on a boat in the middle of the South Pacific. You have 3 dead bodies. What do? You either tell the truth or you try to disappear.
Nobody will believe my story.
Oh, yes. What about the tale that he may or may not have told his mother?
I know the police are looking for me.
The story he faxed to his lawyer and friend, Paul White.
Be honest, you didn't even want me out here in the first place, did you? I see it on your time.
It begins like a playground fight in Fresno.
As a matter of fact, I'm glad you leave.
Look, man, I'm still talking.
They were
to you,
2
man.
boys again, but now with men's voices. Men's bodies.
Miles, stop!
Now Serena hears the scuffling and comes to break it up.
Get off, Miles!
And here the story sort of slips off the deep end.
Serena! Dad!
What is happening?
You killed her, Bison.
You killed her?
We'll figure it out.
We have to report this to the authorities. We're going back to port now.
No! We'll get rid of the body.
Are you crazy? I'm responsible for this boat. We're going back now to the port. Now!
No, do not report this!
Mayday! Sakuna Matata! I have a dead woman on board! Mayday! Mayday!
Miles portrays himself as a victim, forced to defend himself against a brother in a murderous rage.
Miles said that he was able to slip down into the baggage hold where he had a weapon.
Get away from her.
We'll dump the body.
No, we're going back to shore.
Are you with me?
Stay back.
Are you with me?
I'm not with you. I'm not with you.
I don't even know where to start. It's cockamamie, it's crazy. And what's not at all cockamamie is that Miles killed them.
It's more of a script writing, a story for a film, than it is a piece of reality.
In Miles' version of the events, there would have been blood everywhere. Forensically, that did not occur. He had time to clean up. We still would have found evidence to indicate the amount of blood on that boat. We didn't find that.
Okay, if Miles' tale is a fiction, then what in the heck did happen out there? We can only speculate.
If I'm to guess, the captain, the girlfriend, and Brian were taking a swim. Miles just left them in the water, or poisoned their food and dumped them off the boat.
I bet that Miles found some way to disable Brian and then kill the girlfriend in a way that Brian could see.
And if Miles killed them all, did he plan it from the start? Perhaps disposing of the bodies by lashing them to the barbells he brought on the trip? No bodies were ever found. Can you imagine desperate Miles melting in that airless Mexican room, staring into the past, fearful of all his tomorrows? No telling what went through his tortured mind those hours before he decided to end it all. They found him on a beach, comatose from an overdose of insulin. He died 2 weeks later when his life support was removed in a California hospital, leaving a trail of loss and mystery.
I think money is what killed Bison. Money and jealousy. As far as destroying the family, I think there was dysfunction way before the money had occurred.
You call yourself a man, you're never gonna amount to nothing.
Is it possible that the boys shared a smoldering childhood secret destined to erupt in one tragic final act?
One time, Brian and I were talking about, like guys sometimes do, oh, I had it tough, my father whipped me so hard one time or whatever. And he started telling his stories. And after I'd heard his stories for a bit, I said, you got me beat. The common denominator was he seemed to have been abused in ways designed to humiliate him.
How you like that, you little
The
bastard?
stepfather, making a kid stand outside naked so the neighbors can see him while you're holding a cold hose on him.
Stop being a little sissy, boy.
There are people in his life who should have protected him.
I can blame Miles for killing everyone, but who can I blame that put the thought in his head to kill him? I can't blame anyone.
I've had extensive fantasies. I imagine them living in Hawaii with a child, doing pretty well. But I don't know where she would be. She might have come home miserable. And I don't know.
Remember the poem we talked about earlier? The one called Little Boy Lost by William Blake? Well, he wrote another called Little Boy Found. A rescuer appears and the boy is led out of the forest by the light of his imagination. Friends say Brian Williams deeply believed in the power of his own imagination. Some say he was planning a return to the NBA.
That may have been the hardest part for those who knew Brian and Serena, imagining what could have been. Not all stories are settled by one winner, one loser. Some are destined to remain an unsettled score. I am Bill Knack, and this has been one of them.